Is van life really being banned in this country, or is it just a bunch of fear mongering? Well, I'm going to weigh in and give you guys my opinion. All right, so I've been trying to make this video for a while now. I'm trying to be nice, but it's really getting hard. There's been a lot of van life channels out there that are fear mongering and sensationalizing some things that have been going on, and I just want to set the record straight. If you guys are new here, I have been a nomad pretty much my entire life. Right now, I'm not doing it full time like I have in the past, just because I am living with someone who has a home base. But make no mistake, with the exception of this year, we are on the road most of the time. I figured it out, and Ron and I are traveling at least 3 to 6 months out of the year. We live out of this van when we do it, or my Toyota. We haven't done the Toyota in a long time, so our main vehicle of choice is our self-built camper van. I do have videos about that on this channel. If you guys are interested in seeing like a van tour, I do have a recent van tour of this van to kind of give you guys a little update, to show you a few little things here and there that we have added. But yeah, make no mistake, we are part-time van lifers, and so all of this stuff affects us, even though we do have a home base. So, but all of this stuff being said right now is to reiterate the fact that I have been a van lifer longer than YouTube has been around. I have been doing it even longer than Bob Wells, okay? It doesn't seem like it. My channel is itty bitty, and people don't really pay attention to what I say or pay attention to me. However, I have been doing this stuff for a very long time, and one of the reasons why I started my YouTube channel was because I need to be able to call BS on some of this stuff. So all of that to say that I feel like some of these van life channels right now are fear mongering and making people think that it is worse out there than it is. It's worse than it has been in the last 5 years, okay? Van life before COVID was not easy. In a lot of places, especially cities, it was not really legal. You weren't really supposed to go hang out in a neighborhood and spend the night. You're not really supposed to go hang out in a parking lot of a restaurant or something like that and spend the night. Yes, people do it. People were doing it on the down low. That's why they call it stealth camping, because they didn't want anybody to know they were there. Stealth camping, it was not like a trendy thing. It was a necessary thing back when, in the day, to keep people from being, getting in trouble. Also, smart vanners who had to do that for work, because most of the time people like us stay in the cities because they need work. They're doing contract work at whatever place, and they have to stay in town there, and they don't want to spend the money on a hotel or something like that just to work at a job for 2 or 3 days and then leave. So a lot of people stay in their vehicle, and and they just stay on the down low, and they make sure that they don't park in places that they're not supposed to, and they don't outstay their welcome, and they just keep moving around the city and going to work in the morning. And so that was just a normal thing, and that's the way it's always been. And it's never, a lot of cities have an outright ban on the size of vehicle that you can park in there. They always have. And so this is nothing new. And so these places are just exercising something that they've always done. It's just that they got the right to do that back after they overturned this thing that the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, had going on for the last 5 years, just before COVID started, making it so that it's like cruel and unusual punishment to tell somebody that they can't, set up a tent in front of your store and do crack. Okay, there's a huge difference between vanners and people who are genuinely like messed up and need some sort of help. And there's also a difference between us and families who lost their homes because they were priced out of some Bay Area place or what have you, or some horrible thing happened to them, so that now they have to pack up all their kids and put them in an RV and live that way. There's a total difference, okay? And most of those people are still working, and they're, working poor, and they just need a place to live, and they're not bums. Then there are the people who are bums, and I'm not saying that there's not, and there's a whole bunch of them, and a bunch of them, of course, are going to abuse the system. Okay, so there's a lot of that going on, and there always has been. It's nothing that has changed, and these cities basically are just trying to rein in some of this stuff. Okay, now I have an issue with places like San Francisco who don't know how to solve the problem that they created in the first place, and they don't know how to keep from pricing their own citizens out of places to live. And these people need to work, and they were born and raised in the city, and their families are there, and they don't want to move. That being said, though, there are a lot of problem people that need to be taken care of. However, you need to be able to take care of those people, and you need to be able to make sure that all the families and people who really do need transitional housing have the funding and the place to go. Okay, you need to do something about these people. You can't leave over half of them on the street. I heard something like there was 400 RVs that were counted in the city that were not supposed to be there, and there's only like funding to help 50 of those people, or 50 of those families that are in those RVs. What's up with that? What's the rest of them supposed to do? Are you guys going to put them all in jail? I mean, come on, give me a break. So that kind of stuff needs to stop. People, they need to figure out how to manage their city so that people don't end up like that in the first place. And if they do, they need to make sure that they can help these people, especially if they want help. Okay, so there's that. These laws are ridiculous. They are a slippery slope, and I don't blame these channels for, calling these places on these laws, especially the ones where, they say that you can't even stay in your RV at a relative's house with permission, on private property. That's just a slippery slope, and we don't want to go there. We don't want, cities to say, oh, well, you can't visit your mom in your camper van for 2 or 3 days. That's just ridiculous. So we need to stop doing that. And if you have a relative that lives in a city like that, inform them that you're not going to come visit them anymore because of that. And, start, putting out awareness, because that's the thing. People aren't aware of this stuff. And that's one of the reasons why these channels are doing what they're doing. But at the same time, they're getting very, kind of reminds me of the National Enquirer or something like that. They're getting pretty, I don't know, like fear mongering. They're just fear mongering. And so I just want to set the record straight that, I really don't think that these places should be passing laws that are that ridiculous. But at the same time, it's not like they're totally telling you can't do van life, because that's not what's going on. And I guess it's our job as vanners, to know what cities not to go to, because they won't let us even drive through there, because there are some cities, especially in the Bay Area, where you can't even drive an RV that's longer than 20 feet and 7 feet high through their town. And so you just have to stay away from those places. And that's just what we're going to do. And those places that rely on tourism, they're basically, hurting themselves. And that brings me to Idaho. Idaho has a lot of public land. Most of the state is pretty much public land, and there's really no place for growth anymore, because all of the land that is allowed to be private is pretty much bought up or is a farm. And they have this new law on the books statewide that says that nobody can camp in any public area that's anywhere near or inside of a city that's over 10 or 100,000 people. And if, the cities don't comply, they get fined. And so they're forcing them to say, okay, you can't camp anywhere. And I totally get where they're coming from, but they're not thinking ahead, because now if their cities expand, which they are going to, they're going to have all of these cities that are over 100,000 people button up against their precious public land. And guess what? They don't get to use it either, because now it's too close to the city. So they're going to have to drive even further out in the middle of nowhere to be able to camp. They can't use their own public land anymore in a state that were so proud of their public land that they refused to have a national park. So, Idaho, you guys need to rewrite your legislation, figure something out, okay? Because you are not going to be able to use your public land pretty soon because your cities are going to outgrow what they already are now, and it's going to be too close to said public property or public lands. So yeah, that's just like no bueno. So I totally understand why they are talking about those two instances, but the first one that I mentioned, it's always kind of been like that. If you're a person who lives in your vehicle, you better know what you're doing if you're going to be camping in the city, because you're not really supposed to be there. It's never been kosher at all. Now, I want to talk about some of these people talking about how they are getting kicked out of public land and they're closing down public land to get rid of van lifers. This is totally off base and not true. Okay? Anybody who is in the know knows that the reason why the public lands are being blocked off is because, especially since COVID has happened, there have been people out there who have been abusing our public lands and not taking care of the gift that we were given. And on top of that, to make matters worse, we do not have enough staff to take care of those public lands. So they have no choice other than to just put rocks and trees across the road and close off all the campsites because they can't take care of them anymore. I grew up in a Forest Service family. I still have family members who work for the Forest Service to this day. It is one of the agencies that takes care of our public lands and timber, and they do not have the funding to hire enough people to even take care of our campgrounds in this country anymore. So a lot of them that are popular have been contracted out to private contractors to run in lieu of the Forest Service, okay? So that's why a lot of vanners can go down to the big tent and get jobs through certain companies, and then they put them at Forest Service camps. And that's why, because there is nobody to take care of these things anymore. They have cut the Forest Service and BLM so severely since the late 1980s that there is nobody out there to take care of it. Now, the last presidency had this thing where they were kind of trying to hire more people and get them out into being, into forestry, but there wasn't that much of that going on, and it already got cut off since our new president took office, because they were saying they're trying to cut the national deficit, and unfortunately that's one of the first things that gets cut is management of public lands, which I think is really stupid, especially when it comes to the Forest Service, because they're the ones that actually manage the timber industry pretty much in our country, and that's where a lot of our jobs and our money in this country comes from. So they need to stop doing that. They need to put more people out there. And I'm not just saying that because, my family members were and still are working for the Forest Service. So yeah, it's just ridiculous. Okay, they are not violating our constitutional rights and telling us we can't use public lands just because they're trying to take over the world and get rid of van lifers. That's not the issue. The issue is the fact that they cannot possibly clean up after all the jerks that want to trash the place. And I know this firsthand because I live right next door to Yosemite, and ever since COVID and even a little bit before then, we've had a bunch of people coming up here and trashing the place. And it has gotten to the point now where there are so many people that have been coming into our county that the locals don't even get to use a lot of the public lands anymore that we got to use because they are so full, number one. And number two, because they keep having to close them down to protect them because people keep trashing them. Our county got closed not because of a certain virus, but because of people coming here and trashing the place. And I have said that several times on this channel. I have lost a lot of viewership on my channel due to the fact that I will never show people or tell people where we are camping and hiking, because I do not want that to be messed up for the local people in that area or myself. I want to still be able to go back there someday and use it again. And so I have missed out on a lot of ad revenue and a lot of viewership on my so-called travel lifestyle channel, because that's what van life channels are. They're travel channels. Travel vlogs is what they're considered on YouTube. And I can't even use that to my advantage because I want to protect the places that I go from people who are jerks and don't clean up after themselves. So that is what is happening. They're not taking the public lands away because they're trying to get rid of vanners and gypsies and all that kind of stuff. They are just trying to protect our public lands. Now, that being said, there has been for thousands of years people trying to tell people who are nomadic that they can't be nomadic. And even though they've had this lifestyle for thousands of years, they're supposed to come in from the woods or wherever they're at and go stay in the city and live in a house like everybody else. I think that that's wrong. If we want to choose to be on the road and nomadic in whatever capacity, whether we are doing it in a van or we are herding reindeer in the innermost places of Russia, I don't care what it is. We should be allowed to do that if we so choose. However, I just have an issue with these channels that are out there fear-mongering and trying to make it sound like something that it's not, because that is not what is happening. I think that you guys really need to stop fear-mongering, and you guys all know who you are that are doing this on these other van life channels. This is not what is happening. There's only a little bit of truth to what you guys are talking about, and I understand that you need to make a living and you're trying to make views and you're trying to do all this stuff and be successful on YouTube, but I feel like that it's wrong to sit there and basically blow stuff out of proportion, because you know, I have been around doing van life long enough to know that it has always been tricky, and it's always been hard, and it always changes, and it's never going to be the same from one year to the next. And that's part of what makes it cool. Okay. Cause you never know what's going to happen. It's an adventure. All right. And if you're not willing to take an adventure, then I feel sorry for you. You know, that's just the way it goes. And if you're going to go to a public land and outstay your welcome, and I'm not saying you're trashing it, but if you outstay your welcome, or you go there more times than the rules state within a 12-month period, then that's what you get. So now, because of you, nobody can use the land either. You know, because I can guarantee you the Forest Service cops and the rangers drive by and they see who's parked where, and, you know, they recognize everybody's rigs, and they know if you've been there, you know, have outstayed your welcome. Or they know if you just went down the road for a couple of weeks and they came right back. They know that. Okay? They may not stop you every time. They may not say anything to you. They may not even ticket you. But the next time you go there, they're going to have it closed off so that nobody can use it. Okay? So I'm not saying my audience does this. I'm not saying that anybody that watches my channel trashes stuff. But for those of you who do, you know who you are. And so, you know, I have issue with this because I think that people that are doing all this stuff and then they sit there and they cry about it are making it harder for the rest of us. Okay. But that being said, I don't think that van life is dead. I don't think that van life is being banned. Okay. And, you know, there's always been snowbirds, and they're good for economies in tourist towns. And, you know, all of you towns that want to make laws and make it harder for people who live in their RVs or vacation in their RVs to come to your town, don't come crying to everybody else when your tourism dollars go away, because a lot of people, myself included, whether I was doing contract work or whether I'm on vacation now, I come there and I spend my money in your stores, and I buy gas at your gas stations, and I attend your events that you have, and I even use some of your, you know, public facilities like YMCAs and things like that, and pay for showers. I contribute to your economy, okay, myself as a tourist, and or a contract worker. And by the way, a lot of the jobs that get done in the agriculture industry and in the restaurant and hospitality industry, and especially stuff like Amazon fulfillment, especially during the holiday season, are not done by migrant workers from south of the border. They're done by van lifers like me who want seasonal work and who live on the road. So if powers that be want to inhibit our movement and want to make it so that we can't live the lifestyle that we need or want to live, then they aren't going to have a lot of people doing their jobs. I'm sorry, rich folks, but your pyramid's going to come crashing down if you don't let certain people do certain jobs in the country. And I'm not talking about illegal immigrants. I'm talking about United States, U.S. citizens of all different creeds and colors who live in their vans, who live on the road and take care of a lot of that stuff behind the scenes where nobody even knows. There you go. So stop fear mongering. And if you are some of the people who are in charge of this kind of stuff, just keep in mind, you might be messing up your own economy if you do decide to get rid of people like me and my friends who watch this channel. So guys, if you have any comments about what I just said, you know, leave them down below. And yeah, I hope you got something out of this. And if you did, please like and subscribe. And if not, let me know in the comments how you feel. All right, we'll talk to you on the next one, and have a good one. Thanks for watching. Bye.